Research and innovations for the public sector, politics and business. News from the department, administration, economics, security, politics at FH Campus Wien.
Welcome back to my research podcast. In this episode, I will share some thoughts from the case study in South Korea. This spring, 2025, I spent 6 weeks in Korea, which I had selected as the final case study for my comparative study that includes countries in North and Latin America, Africa and Asia. When I selected the countries and regions for this comparison, I considered several factors. While they are all democratic welfare states, I aimed for strong heterogeneity in aspects such as the geographic location and the size of the country, as well as the degree of digitalization in the country. So my intention was to study how public administrations, as well as citizens, deal with the increasing digitalization of public services, as this is a universal phenomenon, and whether it's possible to identify common practices and challenges despite the diversity of the particular country contexts. South Korea is a relatively small country, just about 20% bigger than Austria, but has over 50 million inhabitants. Among my case studies, Korea is the one with the highest degree of development in the field of digitalization and AI. There are different reasons for that, which I can't discuss in detail here. According to the Network Readiness Index, Korea ranks 5th out of 133 countries. This index assesses the digital readiness of countries based on 4 dimensions: technology, people, governance, and impact. Also, in the photo documentation of my field trips, which you can find at juliadalvik.wordpress.com, you can see that the internet and digitalization is omnipresent in public space in Korea, especially in the cities. You can see that there is almost everywhere free public Wi-Fi, also in the subway and the buses. There are wireless chargers, both in subway, trains and stations to be found. It's actually the only case study country where I didn't have to buy data to use the internet during my stay. With regard to public services, you can also see in the pictures that there are self-service kiosks that are located within community service centers. This is one thing that I liked particularly. In Seoul and also in other places throughout the country, you will find community service centers everywhere. Especially in the city, there is a high density of these centers, with several centers located even within one single neighborhood. For me, these community service centers symbolize a strong counterpole in a highly digitalized society. Although the e-government services are well developed with numerous platforms and apps, there is still this possibility for people to walk in and to talk to a person at the counter. These centers can offer different services and opportunities, not only public administration counters, but also a community library, for instance, a citizens' board meeting room, or a small coffee place, just to name a few. I also went to visit a so-called Smart Senior Center, where numerous devices are installed that use the Internet of Things. One of their highlights was a big screen where they can, among other things, see the other senior centers that are part of that network, and to see who is there, what the people are doing, and it's a way of connecting with them. An interviewee from an organization of the city of Seoul that supports isolated people shared that the Internet of Things is also used for monitoring in home settings. Another interview partner, a social worker who goes to visit people in their homes, however, mentioned that some people unplug the so-called smart plug that is used for monitoring and which has a motion sensor because they feel controlled. Both interviewees shared that the administration also uses AI calls to check on people's well-being. One of them explained that while some people prefer to talk to humans on the phone, there are others, for instance with mental or social difficulties, who actually prefer to speak to AI. After mentioning that AI sometimes remembers what the citizen was up to last time they spoke, he shows us an example from such a call.
AI. Greetings from the Raider Cloud, wishing you a full moon of happiness for the Chinese New Year. Is this you, Mr. Lee? Citizen. Yes, it is. AI. Are you okay to talk right now? Citizen, yes. AI. I was just calling to see how you're doing these days. How are you doing? Citizen, yes, I'm doing fine. I'm a little busy. AI. I see. You should take good care of your health and work. Citizen, yes, thank you. AI. By the way, you said you hurt your toe between the soles of your feet the other day and you went to the hospital. Citizen, yes, I went and I'm fine.
In addition, big data and AI are used by collaborating with big private companies, such as the Korean electricity company or Naver, which is, so to say, the Korean Google, to detect so-called abnormalities or something potentially suspicious, with the aim to help people who might be in danger or in need of support. Of course, these practices trigger the difficult question of protection versus surveillance. It was also interesting to see that despite or maybe because of the high level of digitalization in the society, there is awareness of the challenges and limits of AI. Without having completed an in-depth analysis yet, I have the impression that in most other countries there is more euphoria or maybe sometimes even some naive optimism about what AI can already do or what it will be able to do in the near future, especially in the field of public administration. Several interviews in Korea show a bit more critical or maybe realistic stance. For instance, some of the public ombuds staff, which is the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission in Korea, expressed certain skepticism about the possibilities of AI to take over their work. Whereas AI is already used for the analysis of complaints and problems in society, there are certain areas where AI doesn't seem the right way to go. A complaint officer thinks that
in the long term, it is desirable to go digital and go to AI. But first of all, in order to go to AI at the moment, it takes a lot of budget money to change the system. And I think we need more technical development. And at the current stage, there are things that only humans can do, and there are parts that robot machines can do. But in fact, if we do complaints, there are many cases where just listening to them solves so much. So it's the emotional part. AI and robots haven't been able to solve that emotional aspect yet. So this complaint is something that has been solved rationally, but there is also an emotion, a human-to-human encounter, and once the anger that has accumulated through emotion is released. There is a mechanization of AI in the long run. It is right to go, but it is also necessary to deal with such complaints from human beings. So simple consultations and simple things would be good if AI could do this, but only humans can do things that are intricately intertwined. A simple consultation can't be done by a machine.
it seems that especially in the ombuds field, which tends to come close to a counseling setting very often, there is an awareness about the social and emotional aspects of a complaint, not only the administrative and or legal ones. I've also come across very similar perspectives in the other case studies. So my research so far suggests that the interaction in the scope of the public encounter, such as at the counter of an authority, also has a certain social function for many people, which should not be neglected. Another staff member of the ACRC points out another issue that AI isn't good at, or at least for now. He talks about the ePeople platform, an online platform where citizens can easily post observations or complaints or petitions, as they are called.
Currently, the number of ePeople cases is 10 million per year. But when we started this ePeople system at the time, it was approximately 100,000 cases per year, which means the numbers skyrocketed. So at the initial phase, people were able to search all the information and spot the issues and see if this is urgent, we can address it right away or even the very next day. So this was the original intention of why we're having ePeople. But thanks to ePeople, we can digitalize the system, and thanks to that system, we can have far more petitions and far more grievances. But that information, the flow of information, can cause distortion. Of course, that's the reason why we bring AI to the scene. But AI can distort the system and distort the significance of the information. So from an AI perspective, frequency is equal to importance. So one single family in crisis is difficult to be detected from AI's perspective. But because the number of the single family in crisis is 1, it is not significant from AI's perspective. So we have to detect those small voices, and that's the reason why we believe that we have to see those issues by our own hands.
Another aspect I found interesting in investigating practices in different countries concerns the fact that governments, in their euphoria, often tend to overlook some of the actual, more basic problems with regard to harnessing the potentials of digitalization and AI. As a data expert who works for the government in Korea and who does counseling for digitalization development in other countries explains,
in the last years, I traveled to a lot of countries, and they asked me, how can we build a government open data platform? I always told them, do not build the system. You have to build the infrastructure first. It's not the system problem, it's the infrastructure problem. Because the system is easy. The platform, as long as you have budget, you can easily build the platform, nowadays easier. But once you have your platform in your hand, you're not going to have a lot of data. We actually started standardization in data from I think 2007. So all government agencies are now connected to each other and exchange it. So I always emphasize that. Or to have a government open data platform. You know, the platform itself is very easy to develop, but you know behind it you need data classification. So when you collect all the government data, how are you going to classify data? How are you going to manage data? And then the classification model, standardization, and then code. If you use different words for the same thing, it's going to make problems.
this is also what I observed in other case study countries, that typically the different government departments are not well connected with regard to sharing and exchanging data. It seems that this first and important step is often overlooked, as digitalization and AI are presented as promising quick solutions. Citizens usually would like to see a one-stop solution where all services can be used through a single platform and where they don't have to enter their data and the same information over and over again. But that requires, of course, a lot of cooperation among government departments. So for now, I just shared some impressions and observations that capture the way how both the state, through its agencies, and citizens currently handle some of the technological developments in Korea. Overall, the research stay was very insightful, and I look forward to working on the data more closely in order to share more findings soon. Finally, I would like to thank Anna and Min-Young for facilitating my research by interpreting during the interviews. Thanks for listening and stay tuned.
Research and Innovations, Department, Administration, Economics, Security, Politics at FH Campus Wien.